Welcome to the Williams College Museum of Art Building Project Community Forum. As we begin, we respectfully acknowledge that Williams College stands on the ancestral homelands of the Stockbridge-Munsee Community Band of Mohican Indians, who are the indigenous peoples of the region now called Williamstown. Following tremendous hardship after being forced from their valued homelands, they continued as a sovereign tribal nation in Wisconsin, which is where they reside today. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors, past and present, as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. We are very excited to be here tonight to share plans with you of the new museum building for WCMA. This is a major milestone in the project's development to be here to get to share these plans with you tonight. Plans for the new museum building have been many years in the making and have included the committed work of many individuals and team partners along the way, many of whom are present in the audience tonight. These plans are rooted in the college's commitment to place learning with objects at the center of a liberal arts education and its vision for WCMA to grow and thrive as a leader and innovator among college art museums. The new museum will be a space designed with students in mind, fostering a sense of belonging for campus members and the wider community, and an inclusive experience for all visitors. I'm Devin Nowlin. I'm the project director. I work for the college's Office of Planning, Design, and Construction, and I'll be facilitating the presentation tonight together with representatives here of the project team, introduced on this slide. We will give about a 40-minute presentation, and then to save as much time as possible for questions and answers, I will forego lengthy introductions of each individual and ask the presenters to introduce themselves as they first take their role as speakers. And that being said, I'll turn the floor over now to Pam Franks.
Well, hello everyone. It's so good to see you all. Thank you for coming. This is such an exciting moment. I am Pam Franks. I'm the director of the Williams College Museum of Art. And I just wanted to start by highlighting that the work that has gone into this project, as Devin mentioned, has been incredibly collaborative, and there's so many people who have been essential to getting us to this point in design. So I'm joined here tonight by a number of members of the WCMA staff. So if you could all just stand quickly, because I want everybody to sort of see each other so you can know who to have conversations with. Please feel free to ask any of us questions, bring any of us ideas. We're also joined by a number of members of the building committee, the campus building committee. So folks who are on the campus building committee or the design review committee, both together. If you could just stand briefly. This is another group that can engage in conversation and answer questions. And then we're going to hear from all kinds of members of the project team tonight in all different perspectives. So thank you for being here, and know that this is an ongoing process. We're all very visual people. So in setting a course for ourselves, we made it a diagram, and that's what you see on the screen. Everything about the new building for the Williams College Museum of Art is based around the exciting potential of learning and art coming together. And that's true of every aspect of this building. We want to show more of the collection. The collection has actually doubled in size since the last expansion of the museum. So that's something that we're really excited about, being able now to accommodate better. The program has really exploded. It's about 4 times or 5 times as big as it was at the time of the Charles Moore expansion. So we're really excited about being able to to make more facilities available for teaching with art. The other things that we really want to emphasize are the long, strong tradition of arts leadership at Williams, and how many arts leaders, museum directors, curators, museum professionals of every kind come out of Williams. I've been at Williams for about 5 years, and every time I visit a museum, I meet so many more Williams people. It's really incredible the impact that this program has had on the arts around the world. So we want to make sure that this building project really amplifies what's possible there. We also want to really think about how we exist in this incredible arts ecosystem, where down the street we have the Clark, down another street we have Mass MoCA, and finally, and you'll hear a lot about this tonight, we want to bring a great work of architecture that will itself be a work of art as well as a home for art and learning to this site, which is defined by beautiful nature, and make sure that the architecture and the natural world are really speaking to each other. So speaking of the site, I think many of you are probably aware that the museum will be at the corner of Route 7 and 2, where the former Williams Inn was. And I just wanted to say, I actually claimed this slide to talk about the location because I'm very excited about the greater accessibility and visibility of this site for a lot of reasons, but also because it's going to really amplify what's possible for community programming. So we're very excited about the possibility of showing more of the collection. As I said, we really do also want to bring back K-12 programming, family programming in a more robust way than we've been able to in recent years in our current site. So that's just a kind of taste of what we think this new building is going to make possible for the broader community. On an academic front, it's absolutely essential to meet our current needs plus grow into our future needs. But for all of us, it's going to be such an incredible resource and such a great place for us all to come together and really be proud of both the kind of liberal arts possibilities of learning with art and being stewards of this great collection, but also the specificity of WCMA's collection, which spans history and spans the globe, and the possibilities there for this region are just endless. So that's what I really wanted to highlight as we move into design, because this is a program-driven building. If there was ever a program-driven building, it's all about the possibilities that art brings to life and human connection and ongoing learning in every way. So I'm glad you're all here, and I'm glad you're all as excited about this idea as I am. So thank you for being here, and please ask questions of all of those folks in the room who stood up, because we've all been deeply involved with this.
Hi, I'm Ryan Stenker with Perry Dean Rogers Architects. We're the executive architect on the project. We're working with Jonathan's firm Soil. They're the design architects, so there are two firms working on this. What you see here, and it's okay if you can't read the slide, is what outlines the sustainable agenda for the project. So Williams College is really, I would say, at the forefront of sustainable, forward-thinking design. And that's both for their buildings and for the larger campus. So one of the policies they've adopted more broadly as a campus is ILFI's LBC program. ILFI stands for International Living Future Institute, and LBC is Living Building Challenge. So the LBC 4 core, sorry about the wordy language, but is basically the program you see in front of you. There are 10 imperatives that look at sustainability holistically across a whole range of issues. So looking at the environment, ecosystem, water management, plantings, materials that go into the building, embodied carbon, life cycle analysis. All of these things are part of the design process and actually quite aggressive in terms of the things that we are trying to achieve to make this building sustainable for 50 to 100 years. This building's going to be here for a long time, so that's the hope. This is a site plan. So just for orientation purposes, it's oriented the same as the previous plan you saw. So the rotary is down here. Yep. So correct. So that's east, west, north, south. So the building itself is a bit larger footprint than the old inn, but it's largely positioned similarly in terms of where it sits on the site. You can see it's kind of tucked into that corner where the town hall is, and the entrance and parking are also largely similar. Yep. Oh, sorry. It's easier to see from over there. Better? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, I'll just start over quickly. So the building is largely sited where the old inn was, and the entrance drive and parking along the west. So there's a kind of loop road that, where Jonathan's pointing there, that loops around and picks up parking on the north side of the site is, again, largely the same as the old inn was. It's a slightly different shape, but the two are positioned roughly the same. The grade on the site from the east corner, just above Jonathan's head, down to the northwest corner is about a 30-foot grade change, so it's actually quite steep. So positioning the building in this way allows for less severe grading, so we're keeping sort of more material on the site, working with the site, as it were, as opposed to trying to create something that isn't there now. And also the parking area largely, again, is more or less flattened out for where the existing in parking is now. So it's really trying to find positions and home for things on the site that makes sense and work with the site rather than against it. About 99% of the water that lands on the site will be captured and re-infiltrated into the ground, so we're not adding to the stormwater system. The roof water will be captured and held for gray water for toilet flushing. So really the hope is that we're using as little water as possible to keep this building operating on a regular basis. Parking, there's roughly 70 spaces of parking versus the 108 spaces that were there for the inn before, so there's actually less parking on the site than there was previously. I think that hits the high points. Yes. You cert.
I think at the end.
Yeah.
Let's just get, I think it makes more sense to do it at the end. Okay. Yeah, so I think we'll do the questions at the end. To follow up on Ryan's presentation, I'll get a bit more into the building. So I'm Jonathan Malloy with Soil, which is the design architect. So we've been working closely with Perry Dean, our partner architect, and I'm also just one person in front of a very large group of design professionals that have assembled to bring this project to life. And so I think all of those people deserve a lot of credit as well. We have a project team that includes almost 20 different groups with specialties ranging from sustainability to mechanical engineering, structural engineering, all the way down to some specific partnerships with manufacturers and trade partners for complex parts of the project, like the superstructure. So I'm privileged to share the design with you today. So Ryan gave you a basic outline of how the building is sited, and Pam brought this up at the beginning. It's been important for us from the start of this project that the building be derived from not only the region and the sort of history of the site, but also the climate itself. And so we looked a lot and spent quite a lot of time here in this area, and we have some roots here as well, such that the building and the landscape can actually be in conversation with one another and not dissociated. So what you're seeing is both the way that the project is actually taking on a responsibility for the ecology of the site and restoring what is actually a piece of land that has gone through quite a lot of difficult transformations over the last 150 years, and really is in need of being brought back to a place of ecological health. And the building project is an opportunity to do that and to set standards for how buildings might be made moving forward. And so to talk through a bit of what this building is actually made of, and Pam mentioned this is a program-driven building. It absolutely is. And one of the primary architectural concepts that we focused on is to actually have all of the public program on one level of the building, and as accessible and welcoming and related to this sort of nexus in the region and the campus as possible. And so the building both reaches out sort of towards the east while presenting a welcoming presence to the south. So it speaks both to the sort of town roundabout, but also to this connection eastwards towards the campus. And so you'll see that the building is basically composed of 5 program pavilions, and each of them has a slightly different function. So the north wings, there are actually 2 of them, is the body of the building, which are the exhibition spaces that Pam mentioned, which is hosting a larger area for exhibition, which will give the museum an opportunity to show significantly more work than is on display currently. At the southwest is the real nexus of public programming that will be more community focused and available to people of all different kinds, and that includes both a multi-purpose auditorium space but perhaps most excitingly, a cafe that's south-facing that will be very visible and dynamic. We hope will become a significant sort of pillar of the new Williamstown infrastructure. And then to the southeast, we have what is really the heart of the education program of the building. So there's both the object lab, which for those of you familiar with the museum is sort of the heart of the education pedagogy of the exhibition spaces, which is really front and center in the way that the building is relating to the public. And then up to the northeast wing of the east is the study center, which is a significantly expanded infrastructure for classrooms. So there's 2 large art study classrooms, there's a digital humanities classroom, and there's a works on paper study center, all of which are tied with much more efficient logistic relationships to a significantly expanded art prep and storage space, which is at the lower level, and workspaces at the upper level. So there are ways for art to be moving much more efficiently between the different spaces, which in a museum like WCMA is very important, such that as many objects are available to the teaching staff as possible. And so that gives you a sense of how the program relates. And now I'll talk you through a little bit how that actually manifests into space. And one of the starting points that we had thinking through the architectural concept beyond finding the right amount of spaces and program relationships between different programs is how this building can be about bringing people together and creating spaces that are both inviting, welcoming, and fluid. And so oftentimes museums, I've been saying this a lot since the start, are really made up of walls a lot of times. Walls are very important for museums for the ability to display things, but oftentimes walls also have difficulty in terms of separating spaces and holding people at bay. And so something that's been a priority of the museum from the start is that this not feel like a place that you're only welcome if you know a lot about art history, but that everyone would be welcome here. And so in a certain way, we tried to move beyond walls and find a different architectural language for a building that could be about feeling together. And so that in that way, we actually landed on a roof rather than walls. And so the organizing feature of the building is a large overhanging roof that is in certain ways actually derived from some of the vernacular traditions of the region of overhanging porches and interesting flowing shingling roofs. And we have been evolving that roof line to also be in conversation with the topography around, the climate, so it's calibrated, the different overhang depths are calibrated for the orientations they have towards the sun. We've been focusing a lot on the specific materials of the roof to calibrate both lightness and a feeling of dynamism while also capturing a spirit of togetherness as well. So just to point out a few specifics in this image, you can imagine that you're standing in Field Park looking north towards the building. So this is the primary frontage of the museum. On the left side, you see a sort of glazed wall, which is the front of the cafe. And then to the right side, where you see a solid wall, that's actually the object lab, that main volume. And then further to the right of that, where there's glass, you're seeing the study center, both of which are sort of moments of activity in life. So this will take you sort of through the building. This is if you're approaching the building from the southeast. So if you were to, let's say, come from campus, across the street at the corner of 2 and 7, and you'd be approaching the building here, and you're seeing that generous overhanging porch. To the right, immediately in the foreground, is the study center, and then beyond is the cafe, and then the primary entrance to the building would be between those 2 volumes. Here is a view from beneath that porch. So this is that sort of in-between space, perhaps rooted in the many porches of the Northeast, but taken to a much larger scale, maybe more of a stoa or an arcade, that allows sort of a space between being outside the building and inside the building, a place to linger, a place to gather, to meet people, and to feel like you're able to approach. And then this is a view looking directly in, and something that I didn't mention in the plan, but that is really central to the building, and you'll see in much more detail in the interior images, is a central courtyard, which was important to us both to bring light into a deep footprint of a quite expansive building, but also to actually have nature at the center of the building so that there's an opportunity to engage with not only sort of plant life, but the weather while you're occupying the building. And so the other benefit that that brings to us is the ability to see natural light deep into the building as you enter, and that ultimately will be an opportunity for art in natural light in the center of the museum, which is something that's been very exciting from a curatorial standpoint. And then here, just to give you a sense of how the material logic of the building works. So this is an architectural model without a roof, but shows you how these independent volumes are clad with a sort of greenish masonry, which wraps from exterior to interior, and the structure of the roof and the finish of the floor all pass from outside to inside, such that the centralized lobby feels like a place of gathering at the center, as if it's the intersection of four passageways where there's views to the outside, but also that the materials of the outside are coming in. And so this is a view in the lobby. You could imagine standing sort of in the center of the lobby. This is the courtyard to the right. And then what you're seeing above is actually one of the architectural outcomes of our sustainability ambitions, which is what's known as a mass timber superstructure. So it is a wood structure, but it's not wood in the way that timber used to be done or is done in large barns in the region, where in order to make very large spans and large members, you had to cut down very old, large trees. These are actually engineered timber products, which are made from much smaller wood elements that are laminated together to create wood elements that can perform at a similar level to steel and concrete. But by being sourced from sustainable forests, they're actually able to, in certain cases, sequester carbon rather than extract it. And what we're doing here is also finding ways to push the boundaries of that technology. And so what you're seeing is actually a twisting motion that's happening in the ceiling, which is helping to create the roof form above. And so this is one of the cases where we're collaborating with a manufacturer in North America that's helping us to work through the details of this as we speak. This is one of the galleries. This is actually the special exhibition gallery, where you're seeing that the wood material of the ceiling manifest in the galleries as well. And you're also seeing an opportunity, and this is a part of the sort of gallery sequence where there are relationships to the outside through sort of views through the building. And so what you're seeing here is actually through a corridor into the courtyard from the special exhibition space. And that was really important to us to find ways to have these spaces not feel anonymous, not feel like a true white box that could be anywhere, but that these spaces are actually of Williamstown, of the Berkshires, and that you know exactly where you are just by being in the space. And then this is another moment in the galleries where we like to talk about this specific type of moment where in a journey through a gallery, a lot of times there is a sort of prescribed sequence, perhaps a linear sequence, and we've always been interested in presenting an opportunity for a museum goer to make a choice, and perhaps to actually present a moment where it's not clear where to go. And so there's discovery in that you might go a different way each time you go to the museum, and that is something that is being evolved in collaborative ways with the curators as well. But this is the ideas of discovery and exploration have been central in the way we've formed the gallery relationships to each other. And then between galleries, we have what we're calling break spaces, which are basically, I actually think someone on the museum team described it very beautifully, which are sort of commas in a sentence where you have a moment to pause and breathe and have more expansive relationship to the exterior, where they're less concerned about light sensitivity for works of art. And so this is one of those moments actually facing north, which will be an exciting moment looking out onto what will ultimately be a restored version of the site, and also an opportunity for some of the museum's collection that is well suited for this, in this case, the Assyrian reliefs that are so important for the collection. And then the other thing that we are including here are some galleries that have the opportunity for natural light. which would be calibrated with the types of work that could be in there. And so what you're seeing here is a gallery that has both a north-facing window and a clear story above, which has a continuous lay light, so that basically this room would be illuminated by the conditions of the weather outside, and also have the opportunity for the viewing of art in conjunction with the viewing of landscape. And then this is a look at the study center. So this is the sort of student hub of the building, but also gives us a sense of the seasonality of the building and its relationship to the outside. And perhaps in a day like yesterday, where the building is really a beacon of warmth and interiority that can speak to the specific regional context of where we are. And then just a closing view. This is the idea that the building will also be perhaps a beacon in those many early nights that the Northeast is so used to, that really being something that draws people in through sort of luminosity and welcoming. And so this is at the west entrance, where there's both a sort of accessible parking and a drop-off, and this would be one of the primary ways in if you were to come to the museum by car. And you can see off the right edge a sort of glazed corner of the cafe that reaches out towards the south. So I will leave it there.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Andenmatten. I'm with Skanska, the owner's project manager for the project, working very closely with the Williams team from the planning, design, and construction department. I just want to take a moment to step back and give you all an overview of the project timeline and just highlight a few milestones. So as Devin mentioned, just last week we had a very big point on the project where we wrapped up design development, probably the most significant phase of design that essentially culminated in the design and renders that Jonathan just presented. The team is moving into construction documents, which will wrap up in September of this year. And in the meantime, we're preparing to go in front of the planning board and zoning board next month. We are looking to get a jump start on construction with some early site enabling work in the summer, which Sean will get into more detail on momentarily. And then we'll officially break ground in the fall with site work and foundations that'll carry through the winter, and then we'll start to see erection of the heavy timber superstructure next spring. We're projecting substantial completion in the winter of, really probably the winter of 27 now, end of 26, early 2027, followed by, close out the big move, migrating from the old museum to this new building, furniture installations, et cetera, and then grand opening in the spring of 2027. You'll see a few red dots on the timeline too, so we do have a few planned community forums. One will be an abutters forum in the summer, and then another construction kickoff forum in the fall. So I think you've heard it throughout the presentation. This project is taking a very collaborative approach. We have many stakeholders from the college, many committees, but also the community, the town, and we want to hold these quarterly forums to get your input, hear your questions, your concerns, and hopefully address them, head on. We don't want there to be any surprises throughout construction. Whenever there's new construction activity or site activity, we will send out notices, and you can always opt in for email notifications by emailing our project email address, which is provided here. You can also start by going to there's a WCMA building project webpage, which has a lot of information on it, a lot of FAQs, great place to start if you have questions. But if it comes to it, feel free to reach out to this email address, which will be directed directly to the Skanska team and the Williams PD&C team.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Ditto, representing Consigli construction team. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on the construction schedule. As Stephen alluded to, our expectation is to begin mobilize right after the 4th of July. The expectation is our work hours would be normal work hours Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. There probably will be some instances where we'll have to get in and do some off-hour work, but as Stephen indicated, we would certainly provide advance notice so people know what's going on. So whenever, I've been doing this for over 30 years now, whenever I get involved in a project and recognize that construction can be very disruptive, but people seem to be more amenable to it if they know what's going on, they know when it's going on, and they know what they're gonna see and hear. So our biggest concern, or my biggest concern on any construction project is how does it affect the community? How does it affect the abutters and the safety of those folks? In addition to that, it's the safety of the workers that are actually going to be building this project. We want to make sure that we have a separation from our work and we don't affect what's on the other side of our site fence. We certainly want to minimize any disruption, be it noise, be it dust, whatever. So, and really what I have found is being proactive with communication. People know what's going on. Again, they're more apt to, they recognize that that it's going to happen, and they're a little bit more understanding. And certainly we welcome people communicating to us, because we can't correct something, we can't mitigate something unless we know about it. So so here is our site logistics, our overall initial site logistics plan, and we just did get a design update from the design team. But in the last community forum, we heard some concerns. One was, there is another slide that illustrates it better, but the location of the site fence on the south, on the south east corner. So we did pull that back. You can see that in the next slide. The other one that we've been talking with the town about is at gate C, where the construction workers will be entering. The college has presented to the town about adding a crosswalk there and then extending the sidewalk that's currently on the east side of North Street, I think that is. Can't see. Extending that sidewalk down, so that would be part of the design as well. And then we also heard concerns about Gate B and the bus stops, be it the students that would be traversing from west to east. So the college has engaged the design team in doing a traffic study, and are looking at opportunities, the best locations to relocate the bus stops in advance of us actually coming and starting on site, and then also improvements at that corridor. So just backing up a little bit, what can you expect to see? What can you expect to hear? So right after the 4th of July, we're on site. We're setting up a site fence. There'll be a scrim along the entire perimeter of the site fence to make sure that we contain everything within the construction limits. During the summer and into the fall, we'll be clearing the site within the site, getting it down to rough grade. We want to bring all of our utilities in into the site and prep the site for the foundations and start to excavate the material where the old inn was. We have to excavate that material, bring it down to grade, and be prepared to start foundations probably right around after Christmas time. Like I said, we just received the new design from the design team. Our team is engaged in digging into those drawings and really putting together a more in-depth schedule. And as we do that, we're also developing more logistics plans that will provide to the college and Skanska, and you can certainly communicate out. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Tom. So we have some next steps. As Stephen mentioned, we will have continued community forums. We sometimes will be meeting just with the abutting neighbors, and then sometimes having broader community forums like this. On future topics, we are considering sustainability as one focused area of the landscape as one focus area, and ongoing site safety logistics. Others to be announced. We hope to have forums quarterly. We are seeking your comments and questions and direct input, and as part of the invitations for tonight, we asked to be provided questions in advance. And we were able to include answers to some of those questions, I hope, throughout tonight's presentation, but I also acknowledge that we may not have answered every advanced question. However, they are valuable to us as a team to continue to consider and incorporate into our future planning. We also have comment cards available tonight and a QR code that links to a brief survey that asks for feedback on some specific questions. And we hope you'll engage with us through tonight's Q&A and also through the QR code survey. We are again providing the project team's email for future communications, and our website, which will evolve over time for the most current source of information. Before concluding and starting to take question and answer, I do want to take an opportunity to thank Rebecca Dravis, WCMA's communication manager, who helped us organize tonight and get the word out, and what a terrific response we've had. This is amazing. And Victoria Clifford with Skanska, who wasn't able to be here tonight, but played a large role in bringing us together tonight. For question and answers, we do have a microphone, and our Eloise Schreier, who is one of our class of 26?
Yeah, 25.
Class of 25. So please allow us some time. Allow us some time to get you the microphone so that we're sure that everyone can hear you. And questions? You had the first one.
I'm an abutter. I'm not an abutter, but I live very close by, so I'm keenly interested, and I'm also an artist and love art, so this is, to me, very exciting. I was just curious whether you're developing the parking area down below as a first step to allow the workers access. I know that that area is being used for parking for people that are building the Davis Center, and I was just curious about on-site parking and materials, how you're doing that. And let's see, was that any other question? I'm very interested to see how you landscape it with hopefully native plants and things. I like what I saw. It looked like sort of open meadows because Bee Friendly Williamstown did temporarily plant a nice cover where the inn stood, which looked lovely while it lasted. And I guess my other question is just about public transportation. I mean, the bus comes that goes to New York City and stops there, and I'm wondering if you'd consider anything that more sophisticated, a way to deal with public who are going to want to be coming perhaps from afar and would need ready access to this piece of property using the public transportation, including our local bar? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll answer your last question first and then hand it off. So the project team is working closely with the town and with the 4 different operators of transportation that use that bus stop currently. And this is in early planning stages for our recommendation for a temporary relocation of that bus service. And then what it looks like when the site is complete and safe to return transportation service to the site. So we are engaging a civil engineer for that traffic study, working closely with the town, reaching out to those operators to understand what the service needs are. So that is in development. And then for the question about site access and staging for construction, I think is the other question. Who would like to?
Yeah, do you want to take that and then I'll do landscape?
So a majority of the workers would be parking down at the parking garage. The part of the design, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, is to extend the sidewalk as overflow parking for people coming to visit the museum. And then materials on site, typically we don't want materials to be stored on site for any extended period of time because they get damaged and lost. So we would limit materials being stored on site typically that would be installed within a week or 2 weeks. So does that answer your question?
That would be in that lower parking.
Correct.
Or the
Yeah.
public parking, that big open area.
Correct. The intent is, to early on to get that all prepped out, do the site work beneath the ground, get it rough graded, and then it's a clean pad for us to be able to store materials.
And I'm going to pop up here. Can these not get close to each other?
It's these two.
So I just thought I would talk through the landscape quickly, just over the plan. This site plan, and worth noting that we are working with Reed Hildebrand. They're the landscape architect for the project. We love working with them. They're really great. If you haven't met or interacted with Becca at all, she'll probably be up here at some point soon. She's sorry, there's these mics, so I'll make each other. But so just to talk through this plan specifically, in specific response to that question about the overall idea of the landscape, and that some of this is also related to the ILFI, which is again quite forward-looking in terms of thinking about ecology. Should I use that one instead of this one? Okay, is this better?
That's only to the.
That's only, okay. It's back on, okay. There's a few different strategies here, which are identified by the different colors. I'll start maybe at the north of the site, which is part of what we talked about earlier, which is, the location. So the dark green is actually where we're talking about really trying to bring health back to the ecology of the site. So right now, you might be familiar with it. It's sort of wooded, but I actually just took a walk through there a little earlier, and it's a real mess, and trees are falling quite rapidly. So the dark green is really where the intent is to reforest, actually. So the idea is to actually reestablish a forest almost from scratch, because in a certain way the condition is very difficult right now. And the idea with that would be through not only native species, but also, and this is something we've been working with ILFI specifically on, is what that definition means, because in a certain way there are some species that may not be considered native at this moment, but that are actually more robust for the changing climate, so that the specifics of the Berkshire climate are slated to change over the next 50 years, and so there's an opportunity for this landscape to actually be forward-looking and to create something that's as robust as possible, knowing the anticipated changes. The lighter green is in a similar palette, but it's actually fully established, where the dark green is sort of in conversation with existing trees. The lighter green is where there's significant regrading for the parking. Integrated into the parking is also quite a lot of stormwater management. So some of you may at this point be familiar with things like bioswales or bioretention basins, where there's both surface treatment and retention of water, which can also be quite beautiful from a landscape standpoint. So those are both in the center of the parking and just to the south of them. To the southeast, which you rightly identified, is a flowering meadow, which is a little bit different than what's mostly available. The intent is not to have a mowed lawn, but to have something exactly that you're pointing out that would be friendly to biodiversity, to hopefully, as you know, bees and things, butterflies, things like that. We are maintaining mowed strips on either side of the path to ensure that people aren't interfacing with tall grasses, because there are other things that come with tall grasses. So we're being mindful of those things together. And then the pink and purple are slightly more decorative, though. So those are actually welcoming gardens, is the way that we're defining them, where there's more of an opportunity for perennials and slightly more color and excitement. And then that idea of the garden sort of manifests in the interior of the courtyard, where there's an opportunity for some specific species that have durability, that are able to sort of survive and stay green throughout the winter, which is a priority for us also, that this is a beautiful landscape year-round. But absolutely, I think Reed Hildebrand and our other consultants are really at the forefront of this kind of thinking. And so we're very excited with the direction that this is going along those lines. Maybe I can skip.
Hi, my name is Jim Fowler, and the plans look great. I had 3 questions. One is, could you talk about the HVAC system and how that relates to your sustainability goals? Second is on construction logistics. What do you envision in terms of heavy truck travel to and from the site? And what are you doing to mitigate that in terms of designated routes and hours and dust control, noise control? And third, I was intrigued by your comment that you may be introducing trees on site. And I'm wondering if you've given thought to buying those and growing them off-site, so when you move them on-site, there's a more mature landscape instead of saplings.
Absolutely, thank you for the question. So I'll answer 2 of those, and then Sean can take the construction logistics. So for the mechanical systems, as a part of the project, we are targeting a specific EUI number. EUI is, maybe some of you know it, maybe more of you will know it soon, but it means energy use intensity. And it's a little bit like the gas mileage of a building. And it's become a very important number because it reflects in a large part how much energy a given building consumes per square foot per year, which is why it's a little bit like gas mileage. And so as a part of the project in the ILFI, we have a target that is 70% below the baseline of a building of this typology. So for that, we benchmarked other museums, and we're 70% below that. And so in order to do that, we had been looking at quite a few different strategies. And in a certain way, we really considered them all. And where we have landed is, in a certain way, the technology around these has evolved quite a lot. We're using what are called air source heat pumps. The building is all electric. And so air source heat pumps are the sort of most contemporary, and they're very efficient ways of generating heat that can then get moved through air. We were exploring, and we're really, the college put quite a lot of investment, and we were all excited as a project team to have a ground source heat pump system as well, sort of colloquially known as geothermal. Unfortunately, the geology of the site is not able to sustain 800-foot deep wells. They collapsed when we did them. And so that was a disappointing result, because there was, a lot of times the most difficult part is to have all of the buy-in and the willingness from a from a building owner to invest the money into it. We had all of that. It was just that the geology was not sort of appropriate for it. So that was disappointing, but based on our energy modeling, the air source heat pump systems are still achieving our energy target by quite some margin, actually. And as a part of that also is the performance of the building envelope, which is very, very sophisticated at this point, both from insulation, air tightness, and otherwise. So we're still happy and excited about the way that the systems are working, despite the fact that it would have been even more exciting perhaps to have the ground source. And then to your third question about plantings for trees, there's been a lot of conversation about caliper size for both exactly what you brought up, right? Day 1 versus year 5. One of the major points of discussion around that is the establishment of those trees. And so what we understand, and this has been in close collaboration with the Williams grounds and facilities crews that will really be tasked with maintaining those saplings through the toughest times, is that we want to make sure that we're choosing a caliper size that has the best chance of survival. Also, the soils in Williamstown are a little bit difficult, in particular that specific region. So we're doing some in terms of soil amendments. But ultimately, the caliper sizes are being sort of calibrated based on that. And then there will be some selective moments where there are significantly larger caliper size, again, to get some height and volume on day 1. But we're trying to balance sort of burden of establishment and maintenance with trying to make sure that there's significant landscape on site. The thing that we are doing is that we're hoping to do some of the planting earlier than would be typical. So sometimes landscape doesn't happen until after the building's done. But in this case, we're trying to do at least some of the perimeter planting in that reforested zone that we talked about right at the start, because a lot of the foundations and regrading don't interfere with it. So there's an opportunity to plant that sort of reforested edge as early as possible, which in certain way is better than having it grow at a nursery if we can have it grow in place. And in that way, it might have 2 years in the ground before the opening of the museum. But for the trucks.
So can you go into the logistics of that?
Sure will. Which one?
This one. So there's going to be, at certain times of the project, there's going to be more truck traffic than not, right? So initially, when we're doing the excavation, there's going to be a significant amount of trucks removing material. But to mitigate that, we'll have, on the gate A, we're going to have, that's the intent to only come in that gate. So that'll be a paved area. And then gate B, there'll be a wheel wash. And then we'll also, as we're removing material, any debris that comes out on the roadway will be swept up. There will be a regular frequency of street sweeping to make sure that we keep anything on the job site. Deliveries, all of our deliveries are scheduled. Our superintendent is in charge of that. That's part of our subcontractor's responsibility to let us know when there's going to be deliveries. In terms of routing, there's only a couple of different routes that you can actually get to the site. But again, it has to do with communication. So there's going to be periods where there will be several trucks, but you will be notified. So we're going to have, when we have concrete pours, there will be a significant amount of trucks. But it's not like every day you're going to have 100 trucks coming to the job site. But it is inevitable, unfortunately. But getting the excavation done, getting the concrete pours, the mass timber. As time goes on, the frequency of trucks the larger trucks will be a lot less. And we're trying to get a lot of that work done, i.e. the concrete work done in the winter months. And then the nice thing is about mass timber is it's not a loud activity. So in those trucks, we'll be able to come in and they'll be able to queue up on the back of the site. We won't have any trucks queuing up on Route 7. Did I answer your question?
Pretty much.
Pretty much? Okay.
I'll just, it is 7 and I want to be mindful of people's time.
Yeah.
We'll take one more question and then I want to encourage anyone who can remain. I'll be here and available for more conversation, but
But quickly,
of course.
after the trucks and so on, how will the traffic circle? Because I live on Sabin Drive and get in and out of that rotunda about 3 times a day or something. So have you figured out the traffic after finishing construction and so on? After the building is all fixed?
It'll be part of our traffic study that the civil engineers that will evaluate what the current traffic patterns are and then what our predicted attendance increase will be and any other site safety recommendations related to that. So that is part of our ongoing study. I said one more question.
I presume you're aware that that forested area is a fairly significant area bedding down for deer. And it's both a nuisance and a delight, since I just live about 100 yards away from that. And unfortunately, my backyard is part of their regular path. But I'm wondering, in what way are you being cognizant of that population and its habitat area?
What's that?
So it's a great question, and it's one that we have talked about internally. And as someone who has a lot of deer in their backyard, my parents struggle with the same thing. There's really, unfortunately, no real good solution to the sort of relationship to deer. They're both extremely lovely and beautiful, but they also love to eat a lot of things, and so I think Reed Hildebrand has some interesting experience on the topic, and they're sort of Becca, I think, would be the right person to answer this. So I think maybe it would be a good thing to revisit at a follow-up, and I think that's one where there probably will be a follow-up forum that will be dedicated to landscape, and so I think that would be a good one to have Becca and her team speak to specifically, just to make sure that I don't misspeak on it.
Yeah, I would add that part of the ILFI program is biodiversity so both in plant life and animal life. So I think there will certainly be a time when there's displacement when we're trying to reforest that zone. But the hope would be, yes, that those animals and others would be brought back in as part of the ecology of the site. And that's really what the conversation with Reed Hildebrand has been. How do you create something that fosters that for the future?
Yeah, you'll have to bring them back.
Probably won't need an invitation. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll conclude tonight again to be most respectful of everyone's time, but we'll be here, and as Pam pointed out, other members of the project team, building committee, design review committee, all very well versed in the project. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Really exciting to get your questions and present the project to you.